Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Student Experience Panel for NWHE, which stands for Notre Dame, Washington University in St. Louis, Johns Hopkins, and Emory University. So we're really excited to be with you all this evening. Thank you for making time for us. We'll start with introductions. So my name is Mary Catherine Whittington. I serve as a Senior Assistant Director in the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at the University of Notre Dame. I'm happy to be a moderator here tonight, and I will just let the other current students that I have with me here introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Lee. I'm a student at the University of Notre Dame. I'm going to be a senior this year. I'm a biology major, and I also have an international development studies minor, and I am from Boston, Massachusetts.
Hey everyone, my name is Alex. I am a rising senior at WashU. I am a double major in marketing and English, and I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri.
Hi everyone, my name is Kennedy Baskin. I'm also a rising senior at Emory University. I'm studying neuroscience and behavioral biology. It's one major, it's just super long title, and film and media studies, and I'm originally from Hoover, Alabama.
All right, and we have one other current student who will be joining us from Johns Hopkins. She's having a little bit of internet issues right now, but hopefully she'll be able to join us soon and introduce herself. So if you do have any questions for these students, feel free to just type them into the chat or the Q&A. And like I said, I'll be moderating and happy to ask them your questions. Note that we will probably not get to all of your questions, but just to start things off, I wanted to start just at the very basic level of the college search process. So how did each of you build your college list?
Yeah, so I started my college list. I started thinking about it like after junior year, so in the summer between junior and senior year. And I come from a family where like I'm a first generation college student, so no one in my family had any clue, what this process was going to be like. And I didn't really have like any kind of basis to start with. So, like you're going to get a lot of mail from a lot of colleges. I just started with just sifting through a lot of that mail, just trying to figure out like what schools were even on my radar, what schools were even out there, and just kind of organizing it by that. I started looking more specifically at kind of like other interests that I was looking for. So kind of like location, or if I was looking for like certain programs or when I knew I kind of wanted to do biology and pre-med. So I was kind of starting to think about schools that specialized in that area or did well in that area. And then just kind of talking with a bunch of friends and other adults in my life to kind of get some more guidance, because they had a lot more information and knew a lot more than I did while I was going through this process. So just kind of getting their input and kind of seeing whatever knowledge they could offer was super helpful for that. But that's kind of just like a very basic overlay. I literally just kind of went for it, just sifting through whatever information anybody was willing to give me. I was willing to like sit down, listen, and receive that.
Yeah, I think I had kind of a similar experience to Michael. I didn't necessarily have an idea going in of a potential major that I wanted to pursue. So in that sense, I was maybe a little bit more broad in my search, knowing that I could probably go almost anywhere. Whereas if you have, a set major in mind, your list might be a little bit more constrained, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because it means fewer schools to search through. I think for me, definitely like Michael said, looking through other resources, so like parents, siblings, if you have older siblings that have gone through this, teachers, if you've got a college counselor, those people all have very valuable and helpful information, so definitely listen to them. And I think for me, like kind of the big thing starting off was recognizing that like this process is very individual, right? So like it may seem like other people kind of know what they're doing, but everyone has a different experience, and it's important to like know that it's really this process about what you want to get out of it. So like know what your goal at the end of this process is, and like what attributes you want your school to have. They may be different than your friends or whatever, but that's really the end goal, is to get where you want it to be. And I think that's kind of the first step, at least for me, it was to really recognize that and kind of push towards that.
Yeah, and I would say something a little bit different. I kind of had no idea where I wanted to go, why I wanted to go anywhere. So it was kind of just a scatter shot of me figuring out like, what college do I want to go to? I started out looking locally because here in Alabama, very strong state schools here and a lot of other things that I was factoring in because almost everyone from my high school was going to one of two schools. So I was like, am I going to join them? Do I want to go someplace else? I had the opportunity to have a college and career counselor. So I set up a meeting with him at the end of my junior year with my parents. So of course my parents had one idea of like, oh, we want her to go to XYZ school. And I was like, I don't think I want to go there. What are my options? And then I sifted through all the thousands of pieces of mail that will be sent to you once they figure out that you are planning to attend a college. So I then started from there and went through, okay, I kind of was looking for which one had the prettiest pamphlet, if I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So I started making a list from there, again, looking at all the pieces of paper that I was getting. And then I tried to visit as many colleges as I could, even if it was like just reading an article or a blog, just to get a sense of the students and more of the prettiness of a campus. But at the end of the day, I kind of just went 10 random schools, if we're being honest, because I didn't know what I wanted. My mother went to Emory, so that was kind of a little bit of a push, you need to go to Emory, but I also had other people who were telling me other schools, so it was kind of just an all over the place kind of application for me. I was not as organized, so definitely be more organized than me.
Thank you all so much. And it looks like our student from Johns Hopkins was able to join. Thank you so much. I think in the age of Zoom, we all understand internet issues. So if you just want to introduce yourself, and then the question that they were answering is, how did you build your college list?
Yeah, of course. Sorry about that. I'm joining through a phone hotspot. But hi, everyone. My name is Rawa. I'm a rising senior at Hopkins, double majoring in public health and molecular and cellular biology. Aside from working in admissions, I do research on our medical campus in a prostate cancer research lab, and I'm the vice president of our Black Student Union on campus, and I volunteer with an organization that does social needs screenings at different clinics in the Baltimore area. As far as my college list, kind of similarly to Kennedy, I was kind of just throwing out some options and really applying and casting a wide net. I didn't really sit down with myself and have like an honest conversation about what I wanted my college experience to look like or what to even look for when making those decisions. And kind of in hindsight, I think I learned about a lot of those things after the fact. And so my guidance counselor was really helpful in supporting me through what the process looks like, but not necessarily how are you making sure that you know which schools make sense for you to apply to and what kind of criteria to help you narrow down that list. And so a lot of what I did was kind of think about what kind of environment do I want? Did I want to be in a city? Did I want a rural campus? What kind of size school, medium size, small size? These were all things that I started to kind of factor in. And I tried to have like different options that fit like different combinations of things that made sense to me. I also say, look to upperclassmen or other people who've gone through the process that you may have close relationships with and get some insight from them. They can be really helpful. I also looked into a lot of student insider blogs through different schools. So doing that research about schools and really getting the student perspective, I feel like offers you a world of insight. And so that kind of helped me put together a list. And so from there, it was a lot easier to narrow down.
Great, thanks so much. So kind of going off what you just said, Rawa, about having people that helped you out in this process, a question that I wanted to pose to you is, were there any people who you did look to, parents, counselors, friends, either in high school or in college, that did help you through the college search and application process?
Yeah. So sorry about that. Yeah, all I was going to say is I think that the biggest, I think, support network actually came from my friends. And I think that's like a very important thing to have while you're going through this application process, because these are the people that are going through a similar process with you. And it's going to be kind of like the atmosphere that gets kind of created during the college application process can be very stressful, toxic at times. So having very supportive friends, having friends that you trust and can really talk about kind of what you're going through was the most helpful thing for me while going through it. And it's what I use the most, even if, like Alex was saying, it's a very individual process, but, they're still going to have very similar kind of like struggles. They're going to face rejections. They're also going to get acceptances, and you guys can celebrate together too. But like having a good, strong, like friend network was the most important thing for me in this college application process. And it just meant that I always had someone that I could at least vent to. I could bring them a problem, be like, hey, I'm facing this, like I have no clue what I'm looking at here. Like even simple things where I was like, I don't even know like where to access the Common App right now, when I was starting out. A lot of those simple questions that like you just want someone who's also going through it to be able to bounce their knowledge and experiences off and just kind of be there with you. So that was like very critical for me. And then, like I mentioned before, a lot of adults in my life who were also who had like varying college experiences, but were able to like kind of help give me more perspective and kind of insight into what I may be looking for going forward.
Great. Does anyone else have anything to add to that, or any other support systems that you had when you were in that college search process?
I would just add that, like Michael was saying, with friends and things like that, try to your best to not be in a toxic situation. There's a lot of times where you might apply to the same school. This happened with me and my best friend. Both applied to the same school. I got in and she didn't, and that causes a lot of rifts. And you kind of get into this whole imposter syndrome deal. But the best advice I got was actually from one of my teachers, who she was saying that there's only X number spots at every given school. And if you think about, if you're thinking that it's just you, that there's something wrong with you, that's totally wrong. If you have 1,000 spectacular students, but you only have 500 slides, 500 spectacular students are not going to get admitted. So try not to make yourself feel bad or be like, what do they have that I don't have? Honestly, it could be a numbers game. It could be we had too many people from this one area, but they were all fantastic and it was a really hard decision. So I would definitely say making sure to lean on your friends, but also not be like, don't compare yourself to them, because like Alex was saying, it's very individualized. So applications, you can't compare them side by side. There's just no way to do that. Everyone is unique. So make sure that you are reaching out to other people. So for me, my teachers were super helpful because they wrote my recommendation letters. And like when I got rejections, I remember I ran to my English teacher's room and she was like, I kind of didn't want you to go to that school anyway. So she was smiling, which is a very weird thing to hear from a teacher, but those relationships really help you with the process that's challenging.
Yeah, that's great advice, Kennedy, for sure. So a question came in from Sydney that I think is really great. So looking back on this process, do you have any tips on how to organize? I know a couple of you mentioned you weren't very organized. So any tips on how to organize all the lists, details, information for the search and application process? Because I know it can be very overwhelming.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm kind of a person that needs to like write things down. And I think like literally at one point, midway through the process, I had, I think, an Excel file, and across the top, I'd have like all of my sort of like attributes or whatever of the school, like location, size, anything like cost, anything like that, that was like a factor. And then the left-hand side was just like all the schools. And I would sort of just like go through them and one by one, and I could sort of like see everything and compare them that way. And I think that for me was like a way to sort of organize my list. As far as organizing like applications and stuff, I think it's really just a matter of like being really self-disciplined and prioritizing it. I think everyone, if excuse me, I think everyone, if you're considering a school like this, you're of course a very good student, so you probably are prioritizing homework and studying and that kind of thing. And I think really just treating your applications or any of those scholarship deadlines or deadlines to get a recommendation letter, whatever it is, just like treat that as you would a test or a homework assignment, and I think you'll be in good shape.
I would add on, because my sister is about to go through this process. She's 4 years younger than me, so I'm heading out of college, she's heading into college, and this is the advice I gave her, me being unprepared and really kind of all over the place. Start with, make an Excel sheet. You guys learn how to use Excel. It will help you in the future, I promise. It's kind of annoying, but make a spreadsheet and kind of start with what schools are you thinking you want to go to? So for my sister, and just like me, we started locally and then went out broad. So she wants to do engineering. A lot of schools don't have an engineering program, so that narrows down some of them. So if they don't have your major, that's a good way to get some out of the way. And then after that, add in things about like, what's the cost? What type of food do you have? So if you're vegetarian, if they don't have vegetarian options, that's going to be a problem for you. So just going through the things that you want to see in a school. So do you want a technical school, a liberal arts school? Do you want can you come in undecided, or are they really encouraging you to come in already prepared and just do like a checklist on your Excel sheet? It's so helpful. I wish I would have done that. I totally didn't do that. Also add in a column for scholarships. So do they have need-based scholarships, merit-based scholarships, a combination of both? When are the deadlines? When's ED1, ED2, and regular? So then now you have this big list. When everything is due, is it on Common App? So these are just all things to have and organize it together. So you have a beautiful spreadsheet. I made mine for my sister. That's why I'm bragging. It's a beautiful spreadsheet. You could go through, color coordinate it, and it'll make the process so much easier. And then you can go back and send it to friends, younger siblings, your counselors, and help out somebody else.
I'm also a huge fan of checklists. So I had my master spreadsheet with all of my, school information, and that kind of helped me with my list. But as far as getting things done, I think there's something really satisfying about checking things off or crossing things off of a list. And it kind of motivates you to keep going along that process, because it is long and it can be stressful and overwhelming. So just knowing that like that list is getting a little bit shorter piece by piece as you meet these deadlines you set for yourself can be really helpful. And I also like to break things down. So not just like the overall application deadline, but maybe I'd tell myself like, I want to have this supplemental essay done by this date, or I want to have this done by that date. So really breaking it down piece by piece, so you see that it's not as overwhelming as it may seem going into the process, was really helpful for me. And, lean on counselors to kind of get advice. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. A lot of the work you're going to be doing for each application, you can tweak things, you can kind of, use information and things you've worked really hard on to kind of make really great essays and things for other schools too. So don't feel like it's, a never ending process and you have like 17 additional things to do on top of your normal school responsibilities.
Yeah, I agree with everything that everyone has said thus far. And the only thing I'll add is that like I'm someone who needs to kind of compartmentalize a lot of the time. So what I ended up doing was I created one major like Google Drive folder. And then within that folder, I would create a folder for each school that I planned on applying to. And within that folder, I would copy paste like from the Common App, like the questions, just because the Common App layout, sometimes it can get a little bit tough to navigate. It can be, you can miss things, whatnot. So I would like go through the Common App, see all the information and questions that I would need, put it in a document in that respective school's folder. And then that helped me keep things organized. And I would also put like a fact sheet in that school's folder. So that way, if I was working on that school's like questions and stuff, I could have other information right in that folder that I could access as needed. But that kind of helped me compartmentalize things, and it helped me kind of keep a mindset that like, if I opened up like a certain school's folder, I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on like this one school and get out all their questions and whatnot.
All great advice. So several of you have mentioned, that this process can be really stressful and overwhelming. And I think you gave some great tips of ways to organize this. We've had a couple of questions come in asking specifically about tips to stay calm during this process and ways to de-stress. Do you have any advice for the students out there?
Yeah, I can definitely say planning in terms, especially, so someone had asked in the chat, what was the hardest part of the application process? For me, it was all of the essays, because I was very emotionally drained trying to figure out all of these things about myself and reflect back on a high school experience that was not completed yet. So it was very hard for me to get all these together while I'm in my fall semester senior year, where a lot of things, so for example, one of my favorite things I did in high school was directing a musical, The Little Mermaid, and that did not happen until after I already gotten accepted into colleges. So that's what I would write about now, but things like that hadn't happened yet. So for me, what I did, similar to what Michael said, putting all the questions in one Google Doc. First of all, a lot of them are very similar questions. There's no need for you to write a million different essays if it's asking the same thing, because that's how you get really stressed very quickly. So first identifying the commonalities, and then really sitting down and answering the question to your best of your ability. Again, more advice that I got was the essay that takes you 5, 10, 15 minutes to write is the one you want to go with, not the one where you're literally like, ooh, I don't really remember this. This is taking me a very long time. This is kind of a loose idea and you're overthinking it. That's not the essay, because that's not being you. That's you trying to like do an assignment. So make your essay more of a journal entry, like you're talking to the admissions counselors rather than an essay assignment, because they could tell the difference, trust me. And also it's much easier for you. So have a schedule, and with your writing, outline it out. So the earlier that you start, the better this process will be for you. So if you know you need to talk about an experience that happened, like your hardest class or whatever, first have to remember what that class is. So you have to go back in time in your brain and really format that out first. But yes, take a break. There's no reason for you to try to complete all of your applications. So if you're doing a school early decision, that's your first priority because that's usually due first. Everything else is going to be regular decision. So you have a lot more time to spread out everything else. If you're like me, I did all regular decision. So all my stuff was due January 1st, except for some other things were due earlier for scholarships. So I prioritized the ones that were due first. And then I had winter break, I had Thanksgiving break, I had other breaks to work on things that I was unsure about. And I also had to take my ACT again. So I had to plan that around that as well.
In terms of like, in terms of like stress and stuff, I feel like just generally, like, you know, you're still going through senior year. This is like a very still like exciting year for you. Like, don't forget that. I know like some people from my class who like very much got very fixed on this whole entire process, and were making kind of sacrifices in their like extracurricular life, in their like social life, to really get this process figured out and really get it done. But I, you know, like, still make time. It should still, social life and like your friends and stuff should still be stuff that you're still prioritizing and like making time for. And sometimes, you know, that should take maybe some priority over like working on your college application process. Like if you've been working on it the entire week, like a couple hours every single day, you know, maybe it's all right if you want to go like see that movie with your friends over the weekend or whatnot. So just making sure that you don't really lose sight of that is one of the most, I think, valuable things that you could have throughout this application process, because it's going to happen and it's going to take up a lot of senior year, because it really goes until like kind of the end of senior year, because you're really not going to, most people don't really, you know, commit to college until like May 1st or end of April most of the time. So it's going to take up a lot of your senior year. And if you're never really allowing yourself the time to really go out with your friends, to really dedicate that social energy to senior year, it's just gonna fly by, and it's just gonna, you're gonna look back and you're gonna regret it. So make sure that you're still scheduling time, make that a part of like your schedule.
Yeah, I want to 100% echo what Michael said. I think that senior year, you know, is a year you don't get back, and you don't want to waste that in that cycle of stress. And kind of connecting what he said and what Kennedy said with planning, I think give yourself a little bit of leeway with your deadlines, like set them a little bit earlier. So then let's say if there is that week you really want to take that time to do something for you, or you just need some self-care. It's been a really stressful week. Maybe you had a lot of tests that week, and then you're also trying to write an essay. You're not, you know, cramming in, like fitting something in because the application is due the next night at 11:59. You know, give yourself a little bit of grace with those deadlines so that you allow yourself time for life happens, things happen, and you want to be able to not feel like everything is revolving around this college process and nothing outside of that is allowed to occur because you've set really tight deadlines for yourself. So I'd say kind of put the planning and, you know, enjoying life hand in hand. So plan with a little bit of extra padded time with your applications. And I think that that will make it a lot easier of a process to go through.
Yeah, I don't have really too much to add. I think everyone has given really good advice. Definitely take time to enjoy your senior year. And, you know, if you need time to do something that you enjoy, watch a movie or listen to music or whatever you do that you find enjoyment from, definitely take the time to do that. And just on the subject of planning, you know, I think if you do find yourself with extra time, definitely don't let that time go to waste. Now, that's not to say you should spend every waking moment of your weekend doing college things, but if you have a weekend where you don't have any homework and no tests coming up, probably a good idea to spend a little bit of time working ahead, even if it's not due for 2 months, because that time will maybe fall away as the semester goes on. So definitely take advantage of free time when you have it, but don't let all your free time go towards this process.
Great, thank you so much. So we had a question come in about visiting campuses. So I guess my first part of the question is, were you able to visit campuses? And then the second, if so, when did you start doing that?
Yeah, obviously things are a little bit different. I know all of us being seniors, we were sort of pre-COVID, so I think the process going forward will still be probably a little bit different, even looking into the next couple of years. I personally started visiting the spring break of my junior year. I did a couple of visits, and I think that was helpful just to kind of have an idea going into that summer before my senior year, as well as in that fall. Before things get really hectic with starting applications, that I kind of maybe had a little bit of a sense of what I'd be looking for. But I would say, some people start earlier, some people start later. So it's, again, not really like a universal rule of when you should start. That was just what worked for me.
Yeah, and I would say very similarly, I did all of my tours the summer before my senior year. So I worked every summer at a summer camp. So I only usually have like a week or like 3 days. So I did everything that was driving distance from Alabama. So there were some schools that I could not go to because they were not driving distance. So for those places, because I think someone asked in the question answer in the chat, what do you do if you can't go to campus, which is prevalent now because of COVID and everything that's happening? Definitely go to panels like this. There's a lot of questions being asked. Everything's not going to be answered, but you get a little bit of background information. Go to the individual schools information session. So all of us have been having panels that have been going on and they're still going on. So go to one of those. Reach out to an admission counselor and see if you can get the email of a student. They're typically tour guides like us. So you can literally, I had someone send me 25 questions. I answered each one of them with a full paragraph response with links because we love doing this. So if you email and say, hey, I really want to talk to someone who's doing this particular program or just anyone in general, they will give you the information for someone to talk to. And that's the best thing to do, especially now. So I do Zoom meetings with prospective students all the time. And sometimes it's just like, what is Common App? People keep asking me questions like, what is Common App? What is Common App? I'm so confused, and I can actually talk to somebody one-on-one and be like, Common App is usually where you can go to do, answer all the questions. It's kind of organized, but it's kind of annoying because you have to answer the other questions. So having that dialogue, go to as many information sessions as you can. Most of them, I'm pretty sure almost all of them are free and they're on the computer. So that's helpful for you. You don't have to have your camera on. They're mostly webinars anyway, so you could be in your bed chilling or whatever you need to do. But that's the best thing to do. But I did tour, I think 4 or 5 schools in like a very short period of time. So it was very overwhelming and very exhausting. But you notice that a lot of schools have some similarities. So going onto a physical campus, you get to see like physical differences, but if you look at what people are saying, there's a lot of consistencies across colleges. So if you go to one session, you can kind of apply that information to other sessions as well. So you don't feel the need that if you're not going on a tour, you're not going to be disadvantaged in any way, as long as you go to the website or go to something to get that information.
I think I was in a unique position because I did something I don't recommend doing. I didn't visit any schools until after I was admitted. And so I kind of was doing everything a little bit backwards in that regard. I did virtual tours, however, which I highly recommend. There's a lot of really great virtual tours that like give you a pretty realistic walkthrough of campus, especially with COVID going on. And that still allows you some insight. However, I think there is something that you do gain if you are at least able to visit any physical campus and kind of get an idea for what you do and don't like on a campus environment. I think that was a big thing for me. Was I had ideas of what I wanted my campus to look like, but then seeing that in person and being able to make that decision from that point was really helpful for me. So start as early as you feel comfortable with. I think it's good to have an idea of what you're looking for though. So don't start too early where you're kind of just going and you're not going to remember the tour and you're just, there to be there. Like really think thoughtfully about making the most out of that visit and that experience, because that's going to be really integral in the decision-making process, as well as picking where you're going to apply and what schools you're putting on that college list.
Yeah, and just kind of like my 2 cents is just kind of like a quick synthesis of what Kennedy and Rawa were saying. I didn't do any official tours, but I did like visit some campuses just to kind of get the vibes, kind of like what Kennedy was saying earlier. And I do think that is valuable, just so you're kind of aware of the space and also the surrounding town and everything. So if you can at least get out there, kind of see what the school is about.
Great. So we've talked a lot about the college search process, and I think you've given some phenomenal insights into that. So now let's talk about, once you're admitted, choosing where to enroll. Obviously, that's a very big decision. So how did each of you come to that decision? at the end of the day.
It's a very difficult decision. So for me, I had all of my acceptances or rejections the week of spring break, and that's when I had to kind of make a decision. So I was at the beach. That's not what I was wanting to worry about, but you don't get to choose those things. So it comes down to a lot of things. So first, for me, I had to have a conversation with parents about cost. That's a big factor. I also had to think about where I wanted to be. So you're the one who has to get up at 8 a.m. if you have an 8 a.m. class, roll out of bed in the pouring rain and walk to class and sit and pay attention. So did you get the sense that you could do that at your university or at wherever you applied to? And if the answer is no, that's not the place for you to be. So I really was thinking about all the schools I had gotten accepted to, and I went through worst case scenario. It's just a horrible day. Which place am I actually going to get out of bed and do it? Because you're independent now. You can skip class if you're going to skip class, but that's not smart. It's not a smart investment. But I just really went through that process. And for me, Emory had all of those things. So I was like, okay, cool. I don't feel it at this school. I don't feel it at this school. I feel it at this school. But it's going to be different for everyone. So you might be the type of person where you need a ton of people to be around you. You need to go to a big school. You need all of that going on. Like, you're not going to function if you don't know half the people that you're around. Like, you need big crowds. You're from a big city. And some people, you might be like, I don't like being around a lot of people. I want a close, intimate relationship. So think about all those things. You know yourself better than you think you do. So just try to imagine yourself at said university and think about, like I said, are you going to get up for that 8 a.m. class? Because that's a realistic thing that you'll probably have to deal with your first year. And just having conversations with the people about how close are you from home? So if you have family obligations, make sure you're being able to fulfill that. Cost, do they have scholarships? Did you get a scholarship? Did you get financial aid? Do they have your major? So don't go to a place if you think you want to do a major and they don't offer that. Can you major minor? Do they have a program you like? If you're pre-whatever, do they have programs for that? Do they have counselors? So just thinking about all those things. It's overwhelming. It seems like it, but it's really important and you can do it. Again, if you have your spreadsheet, now you have all of the things together. So you have costs, scholarships, food, everything together. So then now it's easier to compare across schools.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it's important to take a look. So what I did was I kind of first went academics wise. Do they offer what I want to study, as Kennedy was saying? Do they have programs, opportunities for hands-on learning? Am I going to be able to really engage and see if this is something I want to pursue? I'm also a very indecisive person. So just like with my college process, I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to study. And so having a flexible academic curriculum for me was really important in where I chose to go to school. So looking and seeing what does the curriculum look like? How much flexibility am I going to have to explore before I have to declare a major? I have to decide what I want to study for the next 4 years. So that's really important. Once I kind of narrowed down the list from there, I also looked at social scene. So what is the, campus environment like? What are the opportunities in the surrounding city that my institution is living in? You're going to be a citizen of that city as well as the college campus you're residing in. And then also the students, like getting to interact with people like you're doing right here on this panel. Are these people you see yourself sitting down and having coffee with and talking about classes or talking about life? Are these people you really see being your peers, your friends, your inspiration? And for me, like I saw that the students were so passionate both in and outside the classroom. And that was an environment I saw that I could thrive in. And that really kind of pulled me, like I really envisioned myself as a part of that campus life. Also look at other facets of campus life. Like if you're really into sports and like you want to have that, sports school environment, or if you're really, into other like clubs or things of that nature, and they offer those, like those can be driving factors because again, you're going to college for your degree, but you're also going to be developing a lot as a person and getting to know yourself in those 4 years. So make sure that you get to have development in all facets of yourself. So make sure that that school offers that for you.
Yeah, I think really great advice on both counts. I don't really have too much to add other than I think like for me making the decision, I definitely was looking at similar factors and things and just sort of like prioritizing that, not just when I was making my ultimate decision, but also through the process of deciding where to apply or where to even look and just sort of like thinking, okay, is this something that I want but also like when it came down to the ultimate decision, like you're probably not going to find a school that has every single perfect attribute that you want. I don't think anyone would say that their school has absolutely everything. It's not going to be totally perfect. So you're going to have to kind of just figure out where you're going to make those concessions. Like, am I willing, okay, this school's a little bit bigger than I want, but everything else about it is perfect. So am I okay with doing that? Or, something along those lines. And I think you're probably going to be second guessing yourself a lot, even after you've already submitted your deposit and you're in and everything. And that whole summer, you're really excited to go, but you're probably going to have that nervousness about, did I make the right decision? But I think, ultimately it's really a you decision, and just sort of like they said, really knowing, like, can you see yourself there is kind of the big question. And that's probably the big thing that I would say.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with what everyone else say. The one thing I'll just throw out there is, again, having like a couple people in your life that you can maybe use as sounding boards, because sometimes I had a couple friends that were able to help me kind of actually vocalize like what it is about certain schools that maybe I didn't like or I did like, and kind of they were able to help tease out some things that helped me understand myself a little bit more and kind of what I actually wanted. Because when you actually have to go out and tell someone like why you're thinking of this, why you're you may be interested in this, it becomes a lot more real, and you kind of start realizing maybe some things about yourself that may be helpful for your decision making.
All right, so you've made your college decision, and now it's time for that first year, which can be really exciting, but also a time of adjustment and challenge. So what was your first year like, and how did you navigate that?
So for me, my first year, I loved my first year. I think it was really fun. I think also since we've been in the pandemic, I'm glamorizing all the times I've been on campus. So my first year I felt was really great. There is a big transition. So I always tell people, even if you're going 5 minutes down the road, it's going to be very different. So I was like, I'm 2.5 hours away from home. That's too close. Totally different. So there was a lot of adjustments that I had more academically than socially, because I usually was able to like go in, find a friend group. I was able to do like a pre-orientation kind of program where I got to meet some people before I even started doing like all the orientation things. And it was really just me getting used to what college, the rigor of school was. And I didn't really know how to study correctly. I always tell people you don't know how to study until you get to college, which I feel like is still true. So adjusting to what it means to study was probably the most difficult thing that I had to do, because I just realized like I'm not XYZ type of learner. Like I have to write things down. I didn't really know that that was my learning style until college, when I was like, why am I not remembering anything? Because I'm not writing it down. So that was fun. I also got the opportunity to kind of like explore around campus and really just meet a bunch of people. I think that's the best thing about your first year, is that you're meeting so many people and you're in a new place, and you get an opportunity to just do a lot of things that you didn't do before, which is a fantastic experience that you can do in a kind of close and safe environment. So I got to go downtown Atlanta, even though I've been there all the time, but with people who had never been to the South before. So I got to tell people what to eat and like explain what sweet tea was, because people didn't understand when they never had sweet tea. So it's very, very fun, and you get to meet so many people and learn about a whole bunch of different cultures and identity, and you get to really see the diversity of a campus. So I really enjoyed my first year. My best advice would be to get a planner. Don't do everything. There's no way that you can be in 40 clubs and still sleep. And also make sure to make as many friends as you can, even if you don't have them your whole 4 years. It's just good to have a good network of people that you know.
Yeah, my freshman year was also definitely a time I reflect on really positively, especially now. I think some of my fondest memories are probably from my freshman year, because everything is really new, newfound freedom, new friends, new environment. You're really, delving into something that I think is unlike any other experience you're going to have in your educational career thus far. And so for me, it was definitely an adjustment academically and learning how to properly manage time, because you spend so much time in a classroom in high school, and your days are not spent majority of the time in the classroom in college. A lot of time you seem like you have so many hours in the day, but that's because you have to do a lot of the work, the real work outside of the classroom, and also find time for, you know, your social life, the clubs, the other things that are important to you and what make you you. So I think freshman year is a really great time to take chances and explore things that you want to try. Don't overload your plate. I always tell people, start with the one thing. If you're handling that well, then you can add another, slowly stagger things in, because I came in, I went to the student involvement fair and I thought I could do everything, and that's just not realistic. So, you know, make sure you're really honest about what am I gaining out of doing this? And, you know, is this something like that I'm spending my time doing? And also, like, for me, some of my clubs, I get to spend a lot of time with my friends because we're all in that club. And so I'm kind of, you know, killing two birds with one stone, doing something I'm passionate about, but also spending time with people I really enjoy spending time with. So make sure to really get to know yourself and take the time to explore, because I think that's the best time to do so is your freshman year. And learn about the city that you're in, you know, get comfortable, especially like if you're not used to, you know, being on your own and having this freedom, like it's okay to lean on other people and ask for advice or tips, you know, ask for help. That was the biggest thing. When you're a high achieving student, it can be really hard to come to college and, you know, think that you're the only person not understanding something. But I promise you, there's at least 20 other people, if not more, who have the same questions, who are thinking the same thing. So ask for help, you know, in an academic sense, but in a general sense, like people are there to support you. And I really met lifelong friends my freshman year. And I think that that was because, you know, I took the time to be vulnerable and really open with people and get to know people. So I think, you know, just make the most of it. It's a really unique opportunity. And, you know, it's just crazy. It's been 4 years already.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I think, you know, the biggest thing I would say is that even if you have a really positive experience, there's probably still going to be some days where, you know, maybe things aren't as great or you're second guessing, you know, did I make the right decision? And I think the biggest advice I would say is just try to, you know, stick it out and realize that things will get better as you acclimate more. I think for me, like a tough period was sort of after orientation was over and all the, you know, there's like sensory overload because you've got like a million people you're meeting every day and you're going and doing all these field trips and, you know, learning all this new stuff. And then like sort of once you start settling in is when you get into the reality of like, okay, I've got classes and I've got extracurriculars and I've got to balance a social life. And that's when things get kind of tough. And I think like really just sort of sticking it out and you'll establish your routine and you'll figure out, you know, what works for you. And I think for me, that was kind of like maybe a tough point, but something that I wish I would have known going in, just sort of like being able to persevere through that. And then things will definitely smooth out as you get going past your winter break and then beyond.
Yep, agree. And a lot of that will just take time. Everything that we've kind of talked about, it's just going to take time. You're going to have to be patient and like, you know, like Alex was saying, there's going to be plenty of like tough moments and tough times. And like, as you may be like transitioning between like how you view yourself or like different phases of your kind of student and social like perception of yourself. So just being patient, it's all right that if you're going to have a tough time, you know what I mean? Like, it will work itself out. Just be patient with it. And again, like Ra was saying, ask for help. Don't be afraid to lean on other like classmates, teachers, professors are always happy to like talk with students and like, you know, you can lean on them if you're really in like a pinch, but don't be afraid to lean on your resources.
Great, all phenomenal advice. Thank you all so much. We are actually at the end of our time already. I know that really flew by, but I just want to really thank our panelists here tonight. I think that they gave you all out in the audience really a lot to think about and a lot of fantastic advice. I know that there were a lot of questions that we did not get to. All of our schools offer virtual programming. Many of those actually feature current students in them. So you will have an opportunity if you go to each of our individual schools' website to interact with other current students, maybe some of the same ones that you see here tonight, to ask, you know, any other questions that you have. This is also being recorded, and we will share out this recording with all of you who registered. So even if you weren't able to make it tonight, we will send out this recording for you if you want to rewatch it, or if you missed some parts, happy to send that out. But again, just thank you all for taking this time. We know that your time is very precious, and we appreciate you spending it with us. So thank you all so much.